Hi there, and welcome to video 27 of the Flipped History series. There are 4 learning intentions for this video, and there are also 4 success criteria. The first learning intention is to indicate the period of the baby boom, and the success criteria is that you can indicate the period of the baby boom. The second learning intention is to indicate the causes of the baby boom, and the success criteria is that you can indicate the causes of the baby boom. The third learning intention is to indicate the consequences of the baby boom on the territory. The success criteria for that is that you can indicate the consequences of the baby boom on the territory. And the last learning intention is to describe Americanism and how it was expressed in Canada in the 20th century. And the success criteria is that you can describe Americanism and explain how it was expressed in Canada in the 20th century. The period of the baby boom begins just after the Second World War. So most Canadian soldiers returned from overseas by 1946. And the period ended in the mid-1960s. Most historians say it ends around 1965. Now, 1 million Canadians served in the armed forces during the war, many of those overseas. And about 48,000 of them returned home with wives. These women were known as war brides. And they started to have children. Now, it wasn't just a case of the men who were at war coming back and having kids, but also people who delayed having children because of the Great Depression and of the Second World War. So you had kind of 2 generations having kids at the same time. So you had people in their early 20s who were just starting out and having families, but you also had people in their early to mid-30s also having families at the same time. So these all factors together, as well as the post-war prosperity, so that means the economy continued to be very strong after the war, led to many people to have these large families. And this was known as the period of the baby boom. Now, the baby boomers are still around with us, and what this here is a population pyramid, and this is shows the ages of various sectors of the population. So we have the people here who were the parents of the baby boomers. This area here, those would be my grandparents, and then we have the baby boomers here in this period from 46 to 65, and then the children of the baby boomers, which that's me, I'm down here, and then this will be you guys down here. So as you can see, there's a big disparity between where you are and where the baby boomers are. Right? These are people that are now entering retirement, and it's going to face a lot of problems for our society. So this cartoon here is just one example. What are we going to do when all these baby boomers, they're starting to become kind of elderly, right? And they're going to put more demands on our medical system, for example, or they won't be paying taxes because they're not working anymore. How is our society going to deal with these challenges? Fortunately, we don't really have too many answers for that just yet. Now, there were more immediate consequences of the baby boom. One was the creation of suburbs. So when these men came back from the war, there was something called the Veterans Charter. And this was a generous benefit to veterans in recognition of their service to Canada during the war. So, for example, they were given a clothing allowance, because these men, they had worn uniforms for the past, 5 or 6 years, depending on how long they had served. But more importantly, they were given low-interest loans to buy either farms or houses. So these suburbs started to spring up on the outskirts of large cities. Now, this picture here shows the development of suburbs in Toronto. So on the left, you have farmland in 1948, and then by the 1970s, you see it's all built up. And in some cases, there's even high-rise apartment buildings, which is a distinct characteristic of Canadian suburbs. If you think of Ottawa, Nepean, Gloucester have high-rise apartment buildings, but these are suburban communities. So it's not just all low-rise houses, but also later on we get the developments of apartment buildings in our suburban communities. Now, the Canadian economy and the American economy were really tied together. So this picture here, McLean, shows the development of Canadian car manufacturing in our country, and demand in the United States for goods, which will be more in the next video, but really is important because of the consumer society that develops both in Canada and the United States. So.
Fine. Yes, I'd love to. Thanks, Jean. I'll be there. 2 o'clock. Goodbye. 3 weeks ago, I couldn't have accepted that invitation. Like so many people these days, we live in the suburbs, and Dave needs the car every day for business. When he was gone, I was practically a prisoner in my own home. I couldn't get out to see my friends, couldn't take part in PTA activities. I couldn't even shop when I wanted to. I had to wait till Thursday night after Dave brought the car home. But that's all changed now. 3 weeks ago, we bought another Ford. The new, low-price, custom-line Victoria. Isn't it stunning? Dave has it all to himself. And I now have the ranch wagon all to myself. It's a whole new way of life. Now I'm free to go anywhere, do anything, see anybody anytime I want to. It's only good common sense. Why be stuck with one expensive car when you can enjoy all the fun and freedom of 2 fine Fords?
Today, more and more families are finding out how easy it is to become 2 Ford families. You can choose from 20 different models, colors galore, and each available with Thunderbird power, with styling inspired by the famous Ford Thunderbird, and each with the extra protection of Ford's Lifeguard design. See your Ford dealer soon.
As more people had money to buy things, more people started to purchase. Now, we were really influenced by culture. So this is a picture of Oscar Peterson, who's a very famous jazz musician. He played with all the big names of the era, Ella Fitzgerald, for example, and he was really well known for his musical ability. So the influence of jazz really influenced him, and jazz was the major form of popular music up until the 1950s, when something changed, and that was the birth of rock and roll. Birth of rock and roll is personified by Elvis Presley, right? He took the world by storm. He came to Ottawa in 1937. It was a big deal, and the reason why American culture spreads is through television. So as people had extra money, they were able to afford things like television sets. And television wasn't just entertainment, but it brought the world into your living room. And you were also inundated with advertisements. So these large corporations knew that people had money to spend, and they were willing to promote their products over and over again. As well, people had disposable income, so they had extra money to pay for leisure activities. So American films, Hollywood, right? This is really when Hollywood starts to really become very big. Of course, movies had been around for a while, but this 1950s is when they really start to kind of blow up. The car culture, so this goes along with teenagers, right? Before the war, when you were a teenager, very few people stayed in school through high school and into university. Most people went into work. But now schooling becomes more and more common for people into their teenage years, and they stay at home, and this teenage culture starts development, and it's developed around the car. So people are going to drive-in movies, drive-in restaurants, and the like. So American culture and Americanism not only spreads to Canada, but spreads throughout the world a little bit later on. Thanks for watching this video. After you're done your notes, please consider the following essential question. How did various measures help shape the settlement of Canada?